I like
Winona
that.
Fighter, question mark. Big, I pretend I'm in a basement show when I'm in my car energy.
That's good. I like that.
You're listening to OurSpace with Matt Vettese.
Today's episode is an exciting one because the band that we're talking to is Winona Fighter. Now, I don't know exactly how I discovered Winona Fighter, but I know it was about a year ago. And I remember the first time I threw on one of their songs, all of these memories started coming back to me of being a teenager and almost like first discovering punk all over again, you know, because so much of what I've been listening to over the last little while has either been super emo or super pop punk, but Winona Fighter leaned way more on the punk side of things with that little sense of pop to make their songs super catchy as well. And I thought, wow, they really have something here. And I didn't realize how few songs they have until I started listening to them more and more and more. And I'm like, oh, there's actually not that many songs out. They don't really have a full length album or anything like that until February of this year when they dropped their first full length. And I noticed majority of the songs on there were singles. And I threw on the album and I thought, wow, this is a perfect album. And every single song on this album can be a single. So when I got the opportunity to talk to Coco of Winona Fighter, definitely had to jump in on that. And this was actually one of the most fun interviews I had because this truly did just feel like a chat, you know? Coco felt like an old friend that we were just hanging out, got more info on their album that they just released, Winona Fighter as a band. There was one portion of the interview where we kind of talked a little bit about how bold Coco is for how Winona Fighter was even formed, because immediately my first thought would be, oh, if you do that, you get murdered. But no, apparently when Coco does it, she finds a band member, starts a band, and is now playing major festivals, has an album out. Crazy. I love that story for her. I cannot wait to see Winona Fighter at All Your Friends Fest in Ontario later this summer as well. A part of this chat, we're going to talk about My Apologies to the Chef, which is the album they released on February 14th. We're going to talk about playing shows live, the energy Winona Fighter has, and more. So let's just dive on into the chat with Coco. And before we do that, of course, hit that subscribe button on YouTube or follow us and leave us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Okay, now let's get into the chat. We're joined by Coco Kinnon of Winona Fighter. Winona Fighter just released their first full-length record, My Apologies to the Chef. That was on February 14th. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
That must be really exciting. How's the reception been so far?
You know what? I was just talking to someone. I was saying for every, one person who maybe is not a fan or has something ugly to say about it, there's been, I think, 100 people to that one person who have just, really loved it. So that's been great. It was definitely super nerve-wracking leading up to it, just knowing how highly anticipated it was. But I think it lived up to the anticipation.
Well, you released a few singles and started getting your name out there quite a bit before this full length came out, and a lot of these songs were already released, and then dropping the full thing. I think that was that must have felt extra special for you to finally be like, okay, we're getting it all. We're getting it all out there.
Yeah, it really was. Cause we've been doing I think we've had such great and big opportunities. Like we do these major festivals like Bonnaroo and Shaky Knees, and we did the Bayside tour. And it's like, people are like, okay, these guys fucking rock, but who are they? So it is really cool to have kind of a bigger body of work out there, and just a really good introduction to us out there. I think for every max 20% of the listeners of the album are going to be people who already know us. So for that majority to now be able to have something where they can just go and click it and listen through, I think that's really cool.
That is really cool. And I know that you're probably tired of this question. I feel like it's a really cliche question to ask when you're talking about names and songs and titles and all of that. But my apologies to the chef. Where did that come from? What's the story behind that?
So my background, while grinding and trying to do this thing is all like hospitality. I've been working in restaurants since I was 15. And so when we're in the studio recording and I was recording drums, when I get frustrated very easy if I can't get something on the first couple of tries. So in order to like kind of calm myself down, I would whisper to myself, my apologies to the chef, as like a play on my compliments to the chef. And so from there, it just kind of like stuck in everyone's, like mine, Austin and Dan's vocabulary. And then when it came time to like kind of conceptualize the album, I started to think about, okay, well, like who is the chef? And it's like, maybe my parents are the chef, they like had nothing and worked their asses off to make a life for their kids. And then their youngest kid is like, I want to be a professional punk rock artist. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy on my part. So it started as something like silly. And then, when we really sat down and thought about it, it's like, well, what else could this mean? Where else does this like stem from?
And did you find that there were a lot of, I guess, mess ups and apologies when writing the record?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, the thing about us is our process is so raw on stage in the studio. It's like we play out of monitor mixes and we don't play to a click track or backing tracks. It's just like a pure raw punk show. And in the studio, it's just the three of us working, like and writing. And sorry, my dog's freaking out in the background. But it's so there's so much room for error. But I think there's something so like cool and like beautiful about that.
There's something so punk rock about fucking up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I remember seeing NoFX as a kid. I was like maybe 13, 14 years old. And Fat Mike being up there basically being like, all right, we fucked that up. But like, here it goes. Or we're going to play a whole bunch of songs. We're probably going to fuck them all up because that's just what punk rock is, right? Like, it's just the raw essence of just being like, hey, we're going to do something. We're going to do our best. If we fuck it up, who gives a shit? That's the spirit of it,
Well, and I think that's the thing. It's like so funny. I think, the past decade and even beyond, music has been so polished. And so like, and I think live shows have been so polished, like I was playing, maybe a little over 100 cap room. And this is no hate or diss to the band, but one of the bands was using in-ears in tracks. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? It's because I grew up in a community. I grew up in the Boston punk scene where it is like, you show up and whatever gear is there, you play, and you go up and you just fucking rip it for 30 minutes. And, I think that's why maybe we come as like a little bit of a shock sometimes to people. It's because that's exactly what we're doing. We're just like going up and ripping it. And if we mess up, so be it. Or if it, if a mix sounds not super polished, so be it. That's cool.
Yeah, you're taking that punk spirit and energy and bringing it to your shows. Now, do you find that you're bringing it to shows? And I guess what has been the reaction of other bands that you played with that may not necessarily have that same energy as you mentioned? We
get a lot of skeptics, a lot of them. And then we go up there and do our thing. And it's always like met with like a holy shit. Cause it is, we can change it up every show if we want, we're not married to these backing tracks or, this like completely planned out set list or idea. And we're able to feed off of the crowd's energy a bit better. And, I think do a lot of stuff that people can't do because they are restricted to a track or a click. So I think it always like takes people by surprise. And I think people are always also surprised that we don't play to a click track because we're all musicians. Like I say, we're artists, but even more so we're musicians and we know our instruments very well. So like we're also very, very tight when we play.
Yeah, and you can mix that up if you need to, right? If you have a fan that just happens to bring a big old sign and wants you to play something that's a bit more of a deep cut, you could just throw that in there and roll with it, even though it wasn't planned.
Exactly.
I want to talk more about the actual songs on the album. Jumper Cables, such a strong opening to the album. I actually saw somewhere that it was the quickest song that you've written. How did that come to be?
Austin and I sat down to write one day, and I was actually really struggling with like writer's block for a while. I think just so much going on in outside life can really affect that. And then Dan texted like a group chat asking if anyone had any jumper cables because his car was dead. And it just like, I was like, oh, that's what I need are some jumper cables for my fucking brain. And then I was like, oh my God, that's it.
A song.
And it came together very, very quick. And after it was written, I think it was, very clear to me. I'm like, if it's going on the album, it has to be the first song on the album, because
why does that have to be the first one?
It's a minute and a half, and it just kind of has that like it's like a jolt, it really is just okay, here's the first song. It's about getting shocked into it. And also before you know it, you're into track 2. So I think it was just like the perfect, I couldn't picture it going anywhere else in the record.
It's a kickstart.
Yeah.
Hams in a Glass, 3.7 million streams on Spotify, most popular song by far. How has the success of that song impacted your band so far?
It's been like very crazy. This is the first time we're ever closing with Hams in a Glass on tour. And it's really, I think, put into perspective how big of a song it is and how much people love it. Just that like end of the show, last song energy. And I barely have to sing on it, I think the beauty of Hams is one, like moving forward, like that's our sound, very like melodic punk, Offspringy vibes. That's kind of like our cake, our wheelhouse. So it was really cool releasing Hams and having such a great reception to it and being like, okay, what we would like to do, it works and is working. And then I think, it's such like a punk song. It just really made me, I think, like hopeful for the community that we're able to bring together. And it just like reminded me of the scene I grew up in so much. And so being able to have this song, which is our most popular, and it truly being, honoring what I grew up doing, I think that's really cool.
That is really, really cool. And it's so cool to see that success as well open up, doors and all of that. But the whole album as a whole, like at that point, at some point, that's going to be over 3 million on each song because it's a great album.
Oh, thank you.
Talk would be the next song that I want to talk about. It's about talking shit.
Yeah.
In today's day and age, I do talk to a lot of musicians that do have to deal with the online world of shit talking and comments and negativity. And I've had a lot of opinions on the show about that. So how do you handle that direct shit talking online towards the band and in the comment section?
Well, directly, if it's on Reddit, I'll just like comment womp womp under like a bad comment. But in like the whole of things, it's like, okay, it's you can't let it get to you. And, that's like, it's just funny. I mean, it's not funny, but like how miserable do you have to be? Like, I'm over here living the dream. You know, I'm touring with my band and we're signed to our dream label and we're, you know, doing good. And and we get some nasty comments too, like very hateful, sometimes threatening comments, but it's like, how miserable, like that's sad. That's all I think is like, that's sad. And I don't have to do anything. Like our fans will fucking nail someone, dude. Oh my God. They'll get you. So I just kind of sit back.
I love that. I love that you can just sit back and let other people take care of it. That's how you know you're also doing something right? Because you're always going to have the positive and the negative, but as long as the positive is overwhelming the negative, that's always a good thing. And it sounds like you were able to just kind of dust it off fairly easily.
Yeah. It's like, it's one of those things where it's, you know, you have to go into it thinking, okay, not everyone's going to be a fan of the music. And then one step above that is people are just going to hate you because they hate you. And you can't force people to like you, or you can't, you know, force them to change. And, yeah, they're just probably very sad. So that's on them.
They're sad, they're bored, and they're leaving comments on Reddit.
Yeah.
Is that where most of the comments and discussion about your band
happen? Dude. Reddit, I will say, for compared to a lot of bands, we do get a lot of nice comments on Reddit. I think that's the thing. We get a lot of nice comments. So when we get a disliked comment, it's nasty. It's like, okay. So like for every like 100 nice comments we get, when we get like the hate comment, it is like, they like dig deep, bro. But I would say a lot of it happens on the Rise Records YouTube page.
What a weird place. People on YouTube, I think, are actually probably the worst commenters, because people just go there looking for that. Like at that point, YouTube just needs to shut off comments entirely.
It's insane. And like, I think the weirdest thing that people do is Rise has so many great like punk, rock, pop punk bands. And yet I think just because we're women, like they'll compare us with like Spirit Box, and they'll be like, oh, subscribed for Spirit Box, unsubscribing for whatever this dumb bullshit is. And it's like, that's just like, come on, like at least compare us to like Sum 41, you know?
Yeah, like it's apples and oranges comparing Winona Fighter to Spirit Box. Both amazing bands, but apples and cats.
Yeah.
Like it's not even apples and oranges at that point, right? Like it's just, yeah.
So those, if anyone's bother me, it's those ones. Cause it's like, why are you trying to like pit us against each other? Like like these two female fronted bands. And I look up to Courtney so much. It's like nothing could ever make me like start to resent them. But I'm just like, why do you feel the need to do that?
People are bored, I guess. I don't know. They're sad, like you said. Like, honestly, that's usually the case for it. I do like the fact that, you know, you mentioned that you just kind of let other people take care of it in the comments, because I feel like that's the best way to do it, to sit back. Or what I like to do whenever I get hate comments is I like to almost leave like a little passive remark at them, and then let other people jump in, right? Like I'll have someone leave a comment on one of my posts and be like, oh, this is so cringy. And I'll just reply back with like, just say you're no fun. And then other people will just jump in, right? Like I'm not going to be that type of person that takes a print screen of their profile picture and be like, oh, you're bald. You know, but instead it's just like, you're boring.
Yeah. It's like, why would you put your, like, I'm not going to waste my energy. You'll get a womp womp and then I'm done with it. But if the fans want to use whatever energy they have, go for it. Yeah.
I like the womp womp. I'm going to steal that from you.
It's a good one because it's like no one can come back at that. Like, how do you come back at that? You can't.
No. Like they're probably going to get even more mad that they can't come back at that because they want to enrage you and then get into an argument with you. But with the womp womp, like you said, there's no comeback to it.
Yeah. With the like, just say you're no fun. They could be like, actually, I'm a lot of fun. And here's a lot of reasons why I'm fun.
As a fun person would. They would have to write out all the reasons as to why
Explain
they're
fun. It. Yeah.
One of my favorite songs on the record is Are You Famous? And I want to know the story behind it.
Yeah. So there are like a couple people it's about. I wouldn't say it's about one person in particular. But going into writing it, someone I was thinking about, just a real, like, we used to work with them and everything they would use for like their own personal gain. Like if we would meet another band that's like far more successful for us, they would use that as like a networking opportunity just for them and only them. And, you know, it's like, oh, what Winona Fighter, what? Just very like moochy behavior. And just made us all uncomfortable. Cause it's like, you know, we want to like, seem professional and, form like good relationships with these people. And, you know, I think we're in a position now where we've been in situations where we've felt like someone's tried to mooch off of us and it's very uncomfortable. And it's like, you kind of don't want to be around that person afterwards. So yeah, it's about someone we worked with who, like the song says, was literally like, are you famous? Great. Let me try to get you in my corner. It's just gross, you know? Yeah. And I have a lot of hate towards that person. So I know I'm trying to be nice and I'm not trying to say anything that could get me in trouble. But yeah, the person it's about, I dislike a lot.
Okay. So it's a true story, someone that you were close with. And, yeah, I think everybody kind of knows some person like that, whether it's in their corporate job or whatever, you know, always trying to like leapfrog you and get into trying to benefit them for sure. So yeah, I think that's why that one resonated with me. Also super catchy, right? So like, that's why I was like, I need to know the story behind it. Of course, without any names, but I think you should leave. I need to know how many Tim Robinson Easter eggs are actually in there.
So there's the line, let me think about it. Let me think about it. Let me think about it. And that's from the sketch where it's the Laser Spine Institute sketch. And then it turns into him going to this recording studio and, they're talking about like his Red River Rock and he doesn't want to cut Red River Rock. And then Robbie comes in. And so the producer tries to give Red River Rock to Robbie. And then Tim's like, don't give it to Robbie. Let me think about it. Let me think about it. So that's definitely from I Think You Should Leave. And then the rest of it, you know, I just felt very much like, although I wrote it about an actual situation, I just felt like it compared so great to like all of the Tim Robinson characters. And I Think You Should Leave. It's like, oh, like you want to like this person, but it's just like everything they do. It's like, you're like, I don't know if you're a good person or not, you know?
Are you just here for the zip line or?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about Winona Fighter as a band. So you're from the Boston scene. You moved to Nashville. I read somewhere that you met Dan from a Craigslist ad. Is that true?
Yeah. So I was looking. I started out as a drummer. I've been playing drums since I was a baby. And so when I moved to Nashville, I was looking to join a band while also just like writing my own stuff on the side. And Dan and I both answered a Craigslist ad for another band. So I would play drums and he would play guitar. And it just like wasn't the vibe, but Dan and I hit it off very, very quick. And so I thought he was awesome at guitar. I thought he was such a great person. And I was like, hey, I'm working on this project. Why don't we just like ditch this thing and you can come play for me? And from there, that's, it just grew from there. Dan's from Indiana originally. So he moved to Nashville. I don't know if it was right out of college or maybe a year after he finished college. And then I had just started school when I met him. And then Austin is from Minnesota, but I actually met him in Los Angeles because I lived there for about a year and a half and he lived there for a few years. And we started writing together out there. And
Through
then
Craigslist ad?
No, he, him and my sister worked together. So Austin was like a pretty busy hired gun bass player, but he was trying to get more into writing and producing. So my sister connected us because I was out there writing, for like a sync company but I wanted to do, write more of my stuff. And then we both ended up back in Nashville and he was in another band for a while when he was here. But then after he left that, the joke is like, he showed up to a rehearsal to fill in and he just never left.
I'm still stuck on the Craigslist ad part of it just because I don't think I've ever responded to an ad on Craigslist ever. Is that like a common thing for finding band members? Am I the weird one here? Or were you like worried about being murdered or what was the deal there?
I was a little worried about being murdered for sure, especially because I was freshly 18 and, this young blonde girl, not from Nashville at all. Yeah, it was weird. It was also at a time where like, this is post Craigslist killer. Like this is a way post Craigslist killer. And
was it post Craigslist killer or post Craigslist killer getting caught?
Post getting caught.
So he may have been around at the time.
He could have been around. I know, lurking. Yeah. And this is a time too, where it's like, Craigslist is like your last option. Okay. It's like, oh my God, I've been looking for a band for so long. I'm just going to check Craigslist. And,
sure enough.
The kid who was putting the band together, so nice, but like, you could tell you're like, oh yeah, you're definitely someone who uses Craigslist. So, but
Dan wasn't.
On the other side of things, Dan and I also use Craigslist. So I don't know. But and it's funny. The first rehearsal, even though Dan, like, it wasn't his like project he was putting together or anything, the kid asked if they could hold the first rehearsal at Dan's apartment. So we met at Dan's apartment, and I was like so confused. I was like, oh. So you live here and the other kid doesn't live here.
And that's who we were both replying to. Yeah.
So it was bizarre. Yeah, don't go on Craigslist, kids.
What's the since we're on Craigslist, what's the weirdest thing that you've seen on Craigslist?
Oh man. I mostly patrolled the band, looking for drummer wanted. A lot of like really weird. I'm a 60-year-old divorced man looking for a bunch of other divorced dads to get together and, just drink some beers and play some music.
Let's start a band.
Yeah. That's, that makes you think, I wonder what the goal is there. Is it to drink beers and have a good time? Because I could be interested in that. I'm not a 60-year-old divorced dad, but yeah. Austin patrols Craigslist to this day, he goes on Craigslist to find like used gear and stuff. Couldn't
Someone
be
needs to
me.
introduce him to Facebook Marketplace. It's a game changer.
Yeah, he's like, he'll patrol Facebook Marketplace. And then if he can't find what he wants, he goes on Craigslist. And I'm just like, why do you think it would be on Craigslist and not Facebook Marketplace? And if it is on Craigslist and not Facebook Marketplace, I would start asking some questions.
There might be some murdering done.
Yeah.
So what do you've got your full length record out now. We've talked a bit about that. The band's been doing their thing for a while. What do you want people to take away from listening to this album and your band?
Well, I would say if you listen to the record, even if you just like it, even if you don't love it, I would say come to a show. Where we are a live act before anything, and it really is amazing. Our shows so resemble just like a real authentic punk show, and 85% of the room is a mosh pit, and people are stage diving and crowd surfing, and it's I want people to be able to get a sense of like the community I grew up in, because that's kind of what started this whole project. Is I loved the Boston punk scene so much. I was like, how do I everyone needs to know about this. Like, how do I get everyone on board? And that's why, we chose to go like a very melodic punk rock route instead of like a thrashing, yelly punk rock. We want to get as many people involved as possible. So I'd say if you listen to the record, come to a show and give it like the full shot, the full experience, because it is such a cool community. And I think the record is so about the human experience. If there's one song on it that resonates with you, and there probably will be, like, you are going to love the people you're surrounded by in that room for sure.
So you mentioned, playing live shows. You're in Nashville, and I know you came from the Boston scene. I know Nashville's known for the countryside of things. What's it like playing in a punk band in Nashville?
Well, when we first started out, we would play like all country bills at honky tonks. Like, it would be all country acts, and then we would somehow weasel our way onto the show, because we were like, oh, we have to play as much as possible. And you do. If you're a band just starting out, that's what I tell everyone. I'm like, play as much as possible until you're actually like getting solid fans, and then worry about if you're oversaturating. But while you're just starting out, oversaturate the hell out of your city. But yeah, so it was like, oh man, uncomfortable. It was like, at first it was so uncomfortable, but there would be one person in the room who's like, I did not come expecting that. But I listened to Blink-182 growing up, and this is like right up my alley. So at first it was, just like, we really put ourselves on some uncomfortable shows. But it also, helped us. And to this day, it helps us. We know how to deal with a tough crowd, and we know how to deal with little crowds and XYZ, or like specific rooms. But now it's a bit better. I would say, like, after 2020, the Nashville, I'll just call it like the Nashville alternative scene, really exploded. So there are a lot more options for punk, metal, alternative rock bands now, that there weren't when I first moved here and started the project.
That must have been tough starting out and being the outsider in the scene of primarily one genre when you're doing something totally different.
It was tough, and of course, you have your people who roll their eyes and just like, what are you doing? What are you trying to prove here? It's like, we're not there just because there isn't the scene that a band like us would thrive in doesn't mean like we can't make it ourselves, was kind of the mindset.
Yeah, you made it your own and you made the best of it within that scene.
Yeah.
I did a video today on my Instagram and on my TikTok where I had ChatGPT roast my Spotify on repeat playlist. Okay.
Oh, no.
So my Spotify on repeat playlist primarily consisted of Winona Fighter, Spirit Box, and Anxious. Anxious's new record.
That's 3 great bands. Oh no!
So that was majority of my on repeat, because genuinely those have been the 3 albums that I've been listening to the most so far in 2025. When it came to the Winona Fighter portion, I want to read this to you and get your reaction. I'm just going to read the portion strictly about the bands. You've got Spirit Box on here 4 times. We get it. You like crying to breakdowns. Anxious is basically your way of saying, yeah, I have feelings, but I also 2-step through them.
I like
Winona
that.
Fighter, ? Big, I pretend I'm in a basement show when I'm in my car energy.
That's good. I like that.
So ChatGPT nailed it.
They nailed it. And one of what's so funny is when we did Denver a couple weeks ago, Dan was walking down the street and there was someone sitting in their car before the show blasting the album and like screaming along to it, just parked. And like he texted us about it and he was like, it was the wildest thing I've ever seen.
They had no idea he was right there, and they're just fully I've always wondered that about even bands in my city, being in Toronto, or whenever I'm blasting something like Pup or whatever, just parked on the DVP. I'm like, what if the guys just pull up and it's just like full blast? They're just like, does that ever happen? Like, how often does that happen? What are the chances?
It could happen.
Well, it happened with
it
happened with you. Oh, that's amazing. So clearly ChatGPT knows the energy that Winona Fighter is going for.
Definitely.
And known for, of course, your live shows, your live energy. You're playing All Your Friends Fest later this year, so you're going to be in my backyard. Can't wait to see you there. And you've also been playing a lot of festivals lately. Who would be your ultimate festival lineup?
Oh, you know what? I think we may have played it. Minus maybe... I mean, it's just so crazy. I am so lucky to be able to say this. We've played festivals with all of our dream bands. We've played festival with the Foo Fighters headlining. We've played, I mean, I would say the closest thing to my dream festival with my dream lineup would be Riot Fest. Like the day we played Riot Fest last year, you had the Offspring and Fall Out Boy and No Effects, and it was crazy. So
stacked.
Yeah.
I remember looking at that too and wanting to make the trip, not being able to, but wanting to, because that was a very stacked lineup. Yeah, so that's a good one. Festivals are fun. Do you prefer the festival environment or more of a solo show?
That's a good one. I really like festivals, and we're so lucky we get to play so many of them. And like I said earlier, we get to play from the niche alternative festivals to these amazing mainstream, Bonnaroo, Shaky Knees type festivals. It's that doesn't happen for bands like us, and it doesn't happen for bands in this genre often. So for us to have been able to break through that mold and be able to do them is, we're very, very lucky and fortunate. Yeah, I do love a festival. I just love the camaraderie and the community of a festival. And, you get to play in front of so many new faces, and you get to, if you're lucky, you're playing with your friends, and it's really cool.
There's also a lot of opportunities to be discovered by new people at festivals as well, which I think is cool. I think that must be cool as a band member, being like, oh, okay, cool. I'm exposing myself to a new audience and bringing in new fans, but also as a fan or an attendee walking by a stage, hearing a band going, whoa, that sounds cool. Who is this? And going to check it out. And boom, now you've got a new favorite band.
Yeah. And it's also, we love a challenge, and it definitely is. We did Innings Festival a few weeks ago, and that's definitely like an older crowd, baseball themed festival. And we definitely won over the crowd, but it's like, those festivals, it's not your audience. Like those are probably like Incubus fans and Fall Out Boy fans are there. So it's a challenge, but I think being able to succeed at that is a really cool thing. And it's really cool. I mean, we walk festival grounds all the time after we play a festival. Like, you can 100% find us at a festival we've played, because we will be walking around. And the fans are just like so respectful, hey, just real quick, I want to say like, great job, or hey, can we get a picture real quick? No one's, we never feel like our space is invaded or violated or anything. Everyone's just really, really cool. Festival crowds are really cool people.
I love that. I love that so much. One question that I ask with every interview, because this podcast was built with the mission statement of continuing to grow the scene within the emo, pop punk world. So we typically end off each interview by asking your favorite underrated or up and coming band, so we can get some more love and start exposing the audience to more awesome bands. So who are some bands that you think more people need to check out?
Oh, okay. There's a band from Atlanta, Georgia that opened our album release show. Actually, I'm going to call it both the bands that opened our album release show. Atlanta, Georgia, Fury and Few. They are a rock band, and it's a duo, a two-piece, and they fucking kill it, dude. I mean, the show is insane. That's what gets me hooked on a band, is the live show. Their show is insane. And then Nashville, Tennessee, the band that opened up for the album release show is called Slow Shiv, and they freaking kill it. I don't know if you have ever heard of the band Diarrhea Planet.
No.
They're a popular punk band out of Nashville, but it's one of the members is from that band. But both of Fury and Few and Slow Shiv are two phenomenal bands. One thing we do on our tour is we have only like locals opening up each show.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it when bands do that. You find a local band from each city to open up for you.
Yeah, it's these fans are letting us into their like communities, and a lot of these communities, it's bands that are like, oh man, I wish we had a scene like this place, or I wish our scene was like this place. And it's like, so we're taking it upon ourselves to be like, well, you do have a scene like that place. Here's a band. Go follow where this band is. There is a scene for you. Like, go follow them. I would say Dime Art in Austin, Texas. They opened up for us. They fucking crushed it, dude. It was insane. Those three bands are phenomenal and extremely underrated. Like, very, very, very underrated. But amazing bands. And it's cool to like, I've just discovered 20 new bands on this last tour, because I had to go through and like find bands and hand pick them to open for us. So that's just been really cool.
It's another way of growing the scene. You're going so many local scenes. Like, that's so awesome. And that's like the spirit of the genre and punk and that, DIY side of things as well. So you can really, you can hear it in your sound, but you can feel it in your energy of Winona Fighter. So I love that. So go and check out these bands that Coco had mentioned, and also go and check out My Apologies to the Chef. It is out now on all streaming platforms. Coco, is there anything that we didn't talk about that we want to make sure that everybody knows about Winona Fighter, or anything that we want to promote?
We're literally touring all summer. We're headlining.
Go and check them out on tour.
Yes.
Of course, we've been talking about their live shows and their energy. It's amazing. So, of course, you have to go and see that in person.
Yes, please. We are hitting literally, like, we're about to announce even more dates. We, like I said, I think a lot of people are skeptical of us. So no one has offered to take us out on tour. So we are doing it ourselves, and we
Big
are
mistake on their part.
headlining all year. And so, yeah, if we come to your city, please come to a show. Like I said, it's a lot of fun. And you will get a taste for your local music scene, and you'll get a taste for what it's like to go to a fucking raw punk rock show. Otherwise, I just want to thank you for your time, and everyone else for listening to the album and their time. We are so fortunate to be where we are. And, I think we're continuing to grow every day. And I think that's the coolest thing ever. So thank you for allowing me onto your platform to talk more about my band.
Thank you so much for coming on my platform, because it's been wonderful. And I've been listening to you before the album dropped as well, and really got really excited when I saw this album. So it's been a pleasure of mine to chat with you. So thank you for coming on. To the people watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please remember to subscribe, like the show, rate and review it. That goes a long way in helping grow the show. And of course, giving the artists that we talk to a larger platform as well. So thank you so much, and we'll chat again next week.
Thank you for listening to OurSpace with Matt Vettese. If you enjoyed yourself, please support the show by subscribing and leaving a review.